Hello, everybody. Tracy, Mrs. JDog Flanagan with you here today. I'm the co-founder and senior vice president of JDog Brands. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Tactical Treasures podcast powered by JDog and Vet TV. Our podcast gives veterans, male spouses, active military members, and military family members a voice in their veteran space to speak about their service, how they're affecting their communities post-service, and they share with me a tactical treasure that has helped them in their journey in their military career, business, or life. Today, I am so happy to have with me Bob Newman, who is a retired Navy SEAL Master Chief, having joined when he was 17 years old and served in the quote unquote teams for nearly 3 decades. After transitioning out of the Navy, Bob spent the first 3 years redefining himself from working with better nonprofits to running a small leadership development firm. Finding and joining the Honor Foundation, or THF, has allowed Bob to give back to the community that has given him so much. Bob serves as the director of virtual programs, which allows him to utilize his expertise to build engaging, world-class content with the latest technologies to facilitate THF's executive-level transitioning curriculum. THF's program provides training, insights, and support to the special operations community. Bob believes that preparing these special operators to use their skills in the private sector is a force multiplier and a win-win scenario for all involved. Bob's goal is to work with his THF tribes in planning, collaborating, and executing the world's premier virtual transition platform. Hello, Bob. How are you?
Hi,
Thank you
Tracy.
so much for joining us today, and thank you for your many decades of service, sir.
No, absolutely. It was my honor to serve.
Amazing career, 3 decades in the Navy as part of a SEAL team. How amazing! Can you speak to me? What led you to join the Navy?
Well, I'll just say the short of it is when I was in high school, I was majoring in juvenile delinquency. So going on to college and further education at that time wasn't the right path. My father thought joining the military would probably be good. He had served in the Army. And he had told me these stories about these remarkable men that he went through jump school with in Fort Benning, Georgia in 1965. And they ended up being UDT transitioning to SEAL teams. So I started reading everything about the SEAL teams and was just really blown away by what they were doing, what their brotherhood was like, and the kind of training they went through. And I was like, yes, this is exactly how I want to test my mettle, see what I'm made of, and just really kind of explore that piece. And one of the things I like to share is when I made that decision, it was a very selfish decision for me. I wanted to prove something to myself. I wanted to impress my father and make my family proud, maybe impress a few young women at the bars while I was telling stories or things of that nature. And I really quickly learned that I was becoming part of something much larger than myself. And I'm grateful that I had this sort of presence to kind of recognize what it was and get out of that selfish mindset and turn that into selflessness.
Yeah, that's great. Is there a moment of your service that especially was impactful for you to in a positive way that stood out to you?
A lot. There's a lot of moments. I think the first would be when I was a very young SEAL, had just gotten attached to our SEAL delivery vehicles out in Hawaii. And my first command, my first assignment was really being a support person for a SDV platoon or a SEAL platoon, which is not an optimal assignment for a young frosty frog that just got out of BUDS training and wanted to become part of an operational element. But addressing that with some humility that I found through the leadership that I was attached to. So these were chiefs, senior chiefs, and some junior officers that were running that actual platoon that I was supporting. They brought us under their fold, and through that sort of empathetic leadership of, hey, this is just sort of a temporary assignment, and one day you're going to be an operator with us, kind of showed me that path of how to lead with trust and how to bring people along and kind of encourage them and things of that nature. And that first impression, again, solidified that I was in the right place with the right type of people that care about, human potential, care about high performance and high character. And I think that working with those elements and then all the experience I had at that first command really set me on a trajectory of trust through leadership and executing in a way it's a remarkable path for everybody. So that would definitely be the first real impression I had in the SEAL teams that told me that
Right,
I was in the right place.
right. Well, that's really awesome, having you be so young in the SEAL teams to be able to have such a positive experience at that time to help shape you as you went on in your career.
Yeah, I mean, part of that story was there was five of us that got attached to this what was called a dry deck shelter platoon, And again, it wasn't a great assignment, and many of those guys didn't have, I would say, a very professional attitude about what they were going to do, and they weren't
Sure.
looking at it favorably. And it was again through that leadership that I had seen saying like, "Hey, Bob, if you kind of suck this up now and put the work in and qualify in as many things as you possibly can, you're going to tell the leadership that you care and that you're professional." And they were exactly right. And I hope that I modeled well for my teammates that also were attached to that platoon. They started following the
Right.
line that I was doing to excel in those positions.
Wow, that's awesome. Um, so you went in so young. Oh my gosh, you were 17, 3 decades. I can't imagine what your transition was like. That must have been a very interesting road.
Yeah. So it
Speak
was,
to us about that.
yeah, it was really interesting. And if I could change something, I don't know that I would actually. But, I was fortunate to be a senior leader in the teams before I retired, meaning I had done a couple of Operation Master Chief tours and a couple of Command Master Chief tours, which were, senior leaders within the organization. So I was already kind of naturally stepping away from sort of that operator mindset, if I'm being honest, right?
Right.
I wasn't kicking in doors and doing all those things in the last 8 years of my career. So in that aspect, I had already started transitioning from the role of a SEAL while I was still active duty. And I had started networking and building relationships with things that I thought I might be interested in when I was going through. But the interesting part is I became a single parent when I was the Command Master Chief at SEAL Team 2. And I recognized
Oh,
at that time I'm raising
wow.
3 young kids. My oldest was 15 at the time, and then, 11 and 8. And
Wow.
it was like, okay, I'm not going to be able to do this, this profession and raise these kids. So I'd already decided I was going to have to work on that transition plan.
Sure.
So I went through it with a lot of intentionality, and we call it Murphy's Law. Nothing can mess up a great plan like a great plan. And
Right.
4 days after I retire, I break my neck bicycling with my race team,
Oh
and it
no.
completely changed the trajectory of where I was going to go in this transition. So it looked
Oh
like
wow.
hospital bed, fusing 2 of my vertebrae, recovering for 9 months. I had started working in the leadership development space already, and my pension was delayed by almost 9 months. My VA disability was another like 12 months. So I had almost had to claim bankruptcy about 8 or 9 months post transition because these things kind of stacked up. So I call it
Oh
kind of
my
the perfect
gosh.
storm of transition.
Wow.
Um, but again, I wouldn't change it because I found myself feeling very fulfilled now. And all along that path, overcoming obstacles, that the obstacle is the way. It's a very stoic philosophy. And in the SEAL teams, we really sort of embrace that because we're always challenged to do things that seem impossible or unlikely to succeed. And we've always just kind of team together, figured out methods of approach so that we can make that success happen. And that same mindset applies to transition. And you don't have to be a special operator to have that mindset about overcoming obstacles and,
Sure.
developing a plan and then executing that plan. And you don't do it alone either. So at all of
Yeah.
this way, I had the support of amazing people. And it was, I think, yeah, September. So I had recovered about 6 months post accident of the broken neck when I went through the Honor Foundation with Group 27. And that
Well,
completely changed the rest of the trajectory for my transition.
sure. Sure. So now you're the director of virtual programs at the Honor Foundation. Could you talk to me about the programs that the Honor Foundation provides and what specifically is do you do in your role as director of virtual programs?
The Honor Foundation, we have 10 campuses, 8 physical campuses, and then 2 virtual campuses are West Coast and East Coast times. And
Hmm.
what we do is we offer a 13-week executive level transition program that covers everything from sort of mindset, helping you re-identify what your persona and your sense of purpose is outside of the uniform. That's
Right.
phase one. It's about five
Hmm.
weeks long. And then the second phase, we give them the skills, tools, and resources to help them find and land that next opportunity, whether that's being hired at a Fortune 100 company or a small boutique firm working in consulting or manufacturing or going back into the government sector space, nonprofits, etc. We help them find that path and prepare for it for interviewing, getting the resumes developed, learning how they can build networks, compensation negotiation. All those things are covered during phase two, and we get them practiced at interviewing, because it's something that we don't typically do in the military, is interviewing for
Sure.
roles and positions. And, that's sort of the long pole in the tent for phase two, is we put them through 4 rounds of mock interviews where they actually go through situational behavioral questions, and they get direct feedback from actual hiring managers on how they did on that position. And then in phase three, we want to help them cast a wide net on what opportunities may be out there for them. Many veterans come into a pipeline like the Honor Foundation. They think they know what it is that they want to do. And through that phase one of re-identifying their sense of purpose, oftentimes that changes. And
Yeah.
so the purpose of phase three is to let them know, like, you have a lot more opportunities for you out there as a veteran than you might have otherwise, realized. You don't have to work as an operations person, and you don't have to be someone that's working in the government space. These skills that we get, especially from the special operations community, they translate and transfer to many other options. And so we do that by putting leadership panels together with senior leaders and executives from across different business sectors, again, from manufacturing, communications, technology spaces, consulting, tech industries. And those leaders will talk about their values, their culture at their companies, what they're looking for in the people they hire. The thing that they will all have had in common, Tracy, is they've all hired veterans from the special operations community. So they'll talk about the advantages that they see bringing those veterans into their organizations, as well as any opportunities that may be there.
Okay.
And one of the vignettes that I like to share is when I went through with Group 27, there was a young E6 SEAL. He did like 8 years in the teams. And he thought his only option was to get out and be a government contractor for 3 to 6 months at a time, going overseas using his SEAL-like skills, right? And then during our trek in phase three, he was exposed to a business panel with JP Morgan Chase, their Houston office. There was like 5 veterans on that panel kind of sharing how they work together as a team, the impact they're making on the communities. And Jason ended up going through JP Morgan. He scheduled a few cups of coffee with those gentlemen and decided to apply and went through JP Morgan's Veterans Hiring Initiative. And if you asked him if he had any interest about the banking or financial institutions, he would have scoffed at you and said, I'm a knuckle dragging SEAL. What do I know about that space?
You're right.
All right. And that's part of the magic of the Honor Foundation is we really have found that when we get veterans outside of their existing networks into that rarefied air, that's where the magic happens. They tend to have these very fulfilling transitions.
Right.
Hello, viewers and listeners. Are you a military veteran or military family member and looking to own your own business? If so, go to JDog.com and check out our 2 veteran-focused franchises, JDog Junk Removal and Hauling and JDog Carpet Cleaning and Floor Care. Our franchisees nationwide are always looking to hire fellow veterans and patriots. JDog is the world's largest military franchise system with hundreds of locations nationwide. We are nearly 90% veteran-owned with the goal of reducing the veteran unemployment rate to under 1%. Check us out. Go to jdog.com to learn more. Now, back to the podcast.
The program, is it just for special forces?
It is. So
veterans? Okay.
Yeah, so we serve all of the SOCOM components, right? So this is your Marine Raiders, your Air Force PJ and CCT, Navy SEALs, EOD, our Surface Warfare Combatant Crewmen, our SWCC operators. So anybody that's under that Special Operations Command component can apply and go through the program, but they don't just have to be operators. People that are attached to Special Operations Command are also available to go through the program because they make great sacrifices. They understand our culture. They can kind of talk the talk, and they've served their country at a level that the Honor Foundation feels is commensurate with helping them with their transition as well.
Okay, that's good to know. So, and your specific role there as director of virtual programs. So, does that mean that there's in-person programs and then virtual programs? How does that work?
Right. So as I mentioned, we have 10 campuses. The 8 physical campuses, we have one in San Diego, which was our first campus. Then we have Eglin Air Force Base, Tampa in Florida. We have Fort Campbell, Kentucky. It's in the Nashville area as well. And we have Camp Lejeune for our Marine Corps base. And we have what was Fort Bragg is now Camp Liberty and Virginia Beach. Those are our 8 physical campuses. And the only real difference between the program and how it is laid out between virtual and in-person is the in-person. We host a dinner at the beginning of each class. Now we teach class 2 nights a week. We kind of run the 13-week program like an executive education platform. So we teach in the evenings after working hours. So the in-person, they'll get a catered meal where it's a networking opportunity where you bring in local business leaders and other transitioning veterans so they can kind of have this shared experience. And then the other big difference between the in-person and the virtual is they do a in-person trek where those campuses will travel to a metropolitan area and visit between 8 and 10 companies and learn about their culture and opportunities that they might have within those different business sectors. Now, our virtual participants are able to get to some of those in-person treks, but it's not kind of at the same.
Okay.
And we run 2 seasons basically. So all 10 campuses will run seasons from September through December. We call that our fall season. And then our spring season starts around the end of January, beginning of February, graduates around mid to end of April.
Okay, great. And so if you choose the virtual option, can you do the whole program virtually?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay. So it just depends on what logistically works for the veteran.
Right. And the way that we process the application is if they're within a reasonable distance of an in-person campus, the only way we would really let them go to the virtual option is if their work demands or their commute demands are outside any sort of realistic expectation. So most of our virtual participants, what we call fellows, they're participating in places like the DC Beltway, or they're at commands in like Hawaii or Colorado, or they're stationed overseas. So currently I have a cohort where I have people dialing in from Japan, Bahrain, and Europe, right? So
wow.
It's all over the globe.
Awesome. Really interesting. I love it. That's great. Your tactical treasure. It's come to that time in the podcast. I would love to hear what you're going to share with us today.
Well, this is a pretty simple one, and I'm sharing it because we did story night last night, which is it's actually the very end of phase 1, where as these fellows are finding their journey and their sense of purpose, they share stories to kind of help illustrate who they are. And I was sharing with them the themes that we heard from all the stories of the fellows last night is nobody went through these processes alone. These life-changing situations that we all find ourselves in. Someone was likely there as an advocate or a support person or a mentor. And so my tactical treasure is you didn't get to where you are today alone. Find that person, find all those people that made a significant impact to your life in a positive way, and let them know. Because that will come back to you in an amazing way, I promise you. I've been on a track of doing that, letting people know how much I appreciate what they've done for me. And it just gives both ways. I think it's just a remarkable way to kind of give back to people that have helped you, because they helped you because they believe in you, they're proud of you, and they want to see you succeed. And I think to be able to give back to that is an amazing treasure.
I love that treasure. That is really special. That's really interesting to go back and thank the people who have helped you along the way. And I think sometimes as we're on our journey, we get busy, we go on, and we forget to go back and say thank you.
Yeah.
2 simple words, but they go a real long way. That's what I like to say about the words thank you.
I love it.
Yeah, that's really great. I love it. What a special treasure. So, if people, veterans want to connect with the Honor Foundation and they're part of that special operations force, how do they go about applying to the program or finding out more information?
Absolutely. So the website is honor.org, and you can
That's
see the application is like there's a bar on the right-hand side, apply here. It'll walk you through the entire process. There's some short essay questions and some pre-qualifiers. And then once you submit the application, you'll schedule an interview with one of the directors, and we'll kind of walk you through that process. So if any of the listeners out there think they may be eligible because they supported special operations at some point in their career path, feel free to apply, and we'll be able to kind of figure those pieces out during that interview process. At the end of the day, the Honor Foundation is here to empower people to be better citizens, better Americans, and better parents, and all those other things in life that we have. And so we have another program out there called the Vector Program for people who aren't connected to special operations. So that's an option out there that kind of walks them through phase 1 so they can kind of realign with their sense of purpose outside of the military, as well as prepare the resume and some of those other things as well that are available to the rest of the DoD. Because back to the point I was getting ready to make at the conclusion here is we believe all veterans deserve a fulfilling transition. We just don't have the band space or the resources to to support everyone out there, and that's why we've developed the
Sure.
Vector program for everyone else.
And the Vector program, is that separate from Honor?
It is.
Okay. Okay. And if there is a veteran listening that says, "Oh, wow, this sounds really cool," but oh, you have a program for an E4,
Yes.
like myself, who had no affiliation with Special Forces, how would they get in touch with the Vector program?
Same thing. Look up the Vector program, and I don't have the website memorized right now. I'm pretty sure it's
Okay.
vector.org, but I'm not 100%. But if they Google Vector Transition Program, it will come up, and they can apply through that process there.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and that's a fully remote program where they walk them through a kind of a structured program, but it's also self-paced to some regard too.
Okay, awesome. That's great. Great information. So there's something for every veteran.
Yeah,
sounds like. I love it. That's great. Absolutely. Bob, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and share everything that you did and to share your story. What an incredible story you have. And you're doing great work there at the Honor Foundation. Exciting stuff. And I'm proud to have you on and hear about the Honor Foundation and all that you're doing. It was awesome. Thank you, sir.
Tracy, thank you so much for having us.
Hello, viewers and listeners. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Tactical Treasures Podcast. We have just finished an amazing conversation with Bob Newman, who is a retired Navy SEAL Master Chief, having joined when he was 17 years old and serving in the teams for nearly 3 decades. He is now the Director of Virtual Programs at the Honor Foundation, which was certified as a 501c3 nonprofit organization in June 2014. The Honor Foundation is a comprehensive transition program that spans 3 phases over 3 months, with the full program experience totaling 120 hours for the Special Operations Forces community. The phases of the program are different, with the first phase focusing on the veteran. What are their passions, their goals, what makes them happy? The additional phases and classes touch upon resumes, LinkedIn, doing mock interviews, networking events, financial planning, and understanding how the civilian sector operates and why they are a great asset to companies in it. The Honor Foundation Executive Education Program provides the tools and experiences necessary to help members of the Special Operations Forces community transition to the next mission in life. To learn more and apply, go to honor.org. And if you were not Special Forces, but you are a veteran and served our country, they have another program called Vector Accelerator. And that program can be accessed by Googling Vector Transitioning Program, which will bring up vectoraccelerated.org. Thank you for tuning in. You can find our Tactical Treasures podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms, as well as Vet TV. We are now airing on Reach Across America Radio on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. And if you missed that, please join us on Saturdays at 1 p.m. for the encore. You can also find Reach Across America Radio on the iHeartRadio app, the Odyssey app, and the TuneIn app. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you on another podcast soon. Bye-bye now.